14. The Storm on the Weather Channel. On the day I hear about Hurricane Susan, my father comes home from work at 5:43, which is an interesting time because the numbers are in reverse numerical order. Also, it's a good time because it means my father probably had only one drink at the Luck of the Irish after the J&R garage closed. For dinner, I have fixed frozen chicken legs from a box, rice, and milk. Rain has already eaten her My Pet dinner. My father and I sit down facing each other at the kitchen table. Rain squeezes herself under my chair. I look directly into my father's eyes and do not say a word about homonyms. "Why are you staring at me, Rose?" he asks. "A superstorm named Hurricane Susan is coming," I tell him. "Where did you hear this? From Weldon?" "From the weather forecaster on WMHT, 88.7 on your dial." My father shrugs. "It will be a storm of epic proportions," I add. "And what are these epic proportions?" I didn't hear the details, so I reply, "A superstorm that could become the storm of the century." My father shrugs again. "We live inland, Rose. Well inland. A hurricane isn't going to affect us. Hurricanes stick to the coast. Sometimes they never even get to the coast. They turn around and head back out to sea." I think for a moment. 88.7 on your dial is our local station. "Yeah?" "Our local station is talking about the superstorm." Sometimes my father grunts. It sounds like, He grunts now. Then he takes a swallow of milk and says, "All right, we'll look at the Weather Channel later." As soon as we've finished dinner and I've washed the dishes, I turn on the television in the living room. I tune it to the prime number channel of 83, the Weather Channel. Two people are sitting at a desk. Their names are written on the screen, Monica Finley and Rex Caprisi. Monica and Rex have serious looks on their faces. Behind them is a map of the United States, and to the right, swirling around in the Atlantic Ocean, is a big red-colored ball that is supposed to be a picture of Hurricane Susan. It takes up a lot of the ocean. Monica and Rex are shuffling through papers and talking to each other, and Rex turns around and points to the swirling red ball. Then, a face pops up in a little box on the left-hand side of the screen, and now Monica and Rex are talking to a third person, whose name is Hammond Griffin. Hammond Griffin is a storm expert. A second map appears on the screen, and now there's so much going on that I can't follow it all. I put my fingers over my eyes and stick my thumbs in my ears, and this is when I hear, faintly, my father come into the room and say, "Rose, don't start. Just turn the TV off if it's bothering you." Then he adds, "What's the matter?" "You turn the TV off," I tell him, without moving my hands. I hear the TV go off. Now what is the problem? I uncover my eyes and unplug my ears. There was too much on the screen. I try to think how to state my problem clearly. My father sighs. "What? 3 people and 2 maps and too much noise." "I'll watch the weather later when you're asleep," my father says at last. Then he asks, "Were you scared about the storm, or did you get confused?" "I wasn't scared," I say. He frowns at me, and then he grunts. "Look, the storm won't get this far. The weather people just like to make a big fuss so everyone will watch their show. We might get a little wind and rain, that's all." "Okay." "Why don't you go to bed now?" "'Cause it's too early." My routine calls for walking Rain in 45 minutes, then changing into my pajamas, and after that going to bed. "Well, don't think about the storm." "Okay." "I think I'll go out for a while." "Okay." 15. Where we live. While my father is back at the Luck of the Irish, I think about the superstorm named Hurricane Susan. I wonder how many miles Catford is from the Atlantic Ocean. I need to see a map, but I don't want to turn on the Weather Channel again. I sit on the couch in our quiet house and pat rain for a while. Then I remember that there used to be a map of New England in our garage. I put on my sneakers and use a flashlight to shine my way across the yard to the square white garage. Rain comes along, walking so close to me that I can feel her shoulder against my leg. I turn on the garage light and find the map. It's on my father's workbench and is not folded up properly, the creases going in the wrong directions, which makes the map puffy, not flat. I spread it out on the workbench, fold it back up the right way, then spread it out again. I put my finger on Hatford. All of the state of Massachusetts and a little of the state of New York are between my finger and the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe my father is right. Maybe we live too far inland to be bothered by a hurricane. But why was the newscaster on WMHT warning us about the superstorm? I refold the map, making sure the creases are in the right directions, and Rain and I leave the garage and walk back to the house. I sit on the couch again. I think about Hud Road and my neighborhood. Here are some facts about where I live. 1. The buildings on Hud Road are the Luck of the Irish, the J&R Garage, the house where I live with my father and Rain, and our garage. That is all. 2. Our house is on a little rise of land. The yard slopes from the house down to Hud Road, and Hud Road runs downhill to the J&R Garage and the Luck of the Irish at the bottom. 3. There are 8 very tall trees in our yard. 4 of them are maples, 2 are oaks, 1 is an elm, and 1 is a birch. Behind our house are woods. 4. There are a lot of small streams in our neighborhood. They do not have names. The biggest of them runs alongside Hud, in between our yard and the road. It flows underneath the little bridge at the bottom of our driveway. I have never seen more than 10.5 inches of water there. The other little streams begin farther up Hud Road and feed into the one in front of our house, which rushes down toward the bottom. These facts are not as interesting as homonyms or prime numbers. They are informative only, but you will need to understand them when you hear later chapters, such as Chapter 19, Rain Doesn't Come When I Call, which takes place the day after Hurricane Susan. I finished thinking about Hud Road and our neighborhood. It's time to walk Rain. Later, when I'm in bed, listening for the sound of my father's car in the driveway, I hug Rain to me. We live inland, I say to myself. This must, M-U-S-T, M-U-S-S-E-D, be, B-E, B-E-E, good. I say it over and over. We live inland. We live inland. We live inland.
So in chapter 14, the storm on the Weather Channel, Rose is consumed a little bit by what might happen. And if you've ever watched the Weather Channel, you know, those people love weather and they really can get very emotional about it. The fact that they warn people is a good thing. Sometimes when they're warning people in one part of the country, people get confused and don't understand that that warning is not for where they live themselves. Like Rose's father seems to believe that since they're so far inland, away from the ocean, nothing is going to happen. That's what he tells her. However, the Weather Channel people are telling them it's a superstorm and to be prepared. And obviously, Rose is scared. Then chapter 15, Where We Live, she describes where they are in relation to the Atlantic Ocean and looks at a map in the garage and realizes they are pretty far away from the ocean. And if hurricanes are, you know, based around the oceans, it probably wouldn't affect them, or would it? She's still scared. So we get a little insight. But in this chapter, I noticed Rose's father, he was a little annoyed by her questions, but he wasn't angry. and he seemed a little bit more comforting, just a touch. Not like Uncle Weldon, but he was a little nicer. He didn't yell at her quite so much. Okay, now to the questions.